Okay, so this video is the second in a series. It's going to lead us towards a basic learning application. In the first one we created some graphics using various drawing tools. Now what we're going to do is take a quick look at symbols. Okay, so we may remember that we created two symbols, a banana and an apple, and this little icon next to them denotes that it is what is known as a graphic symbol. That's the most basic form of symbol, and this allows us to create animation within a timeline. But what we're going to actually want to do with these, as we'll be using some scripts at some point, is have them to be movie clips. So I'm going to just move this up here, and there we go. I'm going to convert symbol again. This time it's going to be a movie clip, and that will just be banana and C, capital C. So these names have no real meaning beyond the scope of the library, so we may use a similar name on the main stage eventually. So we click OK, and I will do the same for the apple. I'll bring that onto the stage for a second, right click and choose convert symbol, and the shortcut for that is F8. And in this case it'll be apple and C. So now we've got what's known as a graphic with inside a movie clip. The reason is to animate we will need a graphic symbol or a movie clip. So inside of the apple movie clip, if I double click on it, let's bring this across with me, we will see in the top left corner that we are inside of that apple movie clip. So when we're in scene 1, if I double click on it, we're now inside the movie clip. It's got its own timeline, so what that means is I can animate this, and I'll do so by putting in a frame around here, and then right click, create motion tween, and then move the playhead to the end of that sequence, and I will just move it onto the stage, center stage, like so. And we see here this green line illustrates the path that it will take. If I hover over it and click, I can actually curve that path so that it's got a bit more of an interesting motion in, and if I press enter it will play me through that. Okay. If I return to the main timeline, that path will cease to exist, and the animation will be relative to wherever we do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Ctrl and Enter and just show you that animation running as it curves in. We only see the last bit of it. If I then close this window down and position it a little bit further down, it will change what we see when we test it again. So now we only see that part of it. It's quite a fast animation, to be honest, so for a transition we'd maybe want to make that timeline slightly longer. So I'm going to double click on the apple, go inside of its timeline, I know that I'm there because it says so at the top of the screen, hover over the end of the timeline, and then I get 2 arrows. So I'm going to drag it out until it's 36 frames, which will be 1.5 seconds for the current frame rate. Control Enter that, and it comes in slowly, nicely like that. And I'll just reposition the apple to be over here, a little bit higher up, so it appears on the stage when it's finished, and maybe a little bit lower down. Okay. And this is of use because we can then, inside of that timeline, add some simple scripts in. And the way we do this, I create a layer, call it actions, and I'm just going to tell it by right clicking on actions, bring this down in the timeline, to stop. So it's stopped by stop, brackets, colon, I'll just make the text bigger so we can see that. So, action script 60 should be bigger. It's a little bit bigger for you to see. And we know that script is on frame 1 because of the little A that appears there. So now nothing will happen because it will stay stopped in the position it starts. There we go. But we could make it appear based on clicking the main stage. So I'm going to go back to scene 1, and then there I was having layer 1, so now I'm going to add another layer, call it actions. In layer 1 I'm just going to call that object, or even graphic actually, be a bit more descriptive. So in my actions layer I will then create some script, and I'll make the text window slightly bigger to achieve this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to tell the movie itself to listen for someone clicking on the stage. So I can do that by telling it to stage and using a function called add event listener. As I type, I'm getting some code, and if I press return it will finish that off for me. The kind of event I'm going to listen for is a mouse event click. If I press return now, it then also imports the mouse event for me, which just puts that line of code in. We don't need to understand too much about that, it just needs to be there. And then I tell it what I want to do. So I'm going to give it a list of instructions. So I'm going to call it click stage. And after that line I'm going to need to create an accompanying function called click stage. Everything's case sensitive, so that means your capital letters and your lowercase have to be exactly the same when you're using names. E, and then the type of event that we've just described was a mouse event. Find that, return in brackets, then some curly brackets. When I press return it will add in the second one. So my list of instructions come between the bounds of this and this, and all I'm going to do is tell it to play from the start of the timeline inside of that movie clip. So if I put apple_mc.play, and which I'll need to name that movie clip that name, so I'm going to copy and paste this. Copy and select that apple, go to properties, paste that in, and that should now work. So into the center, and then if I click on the stage, there the apple appears and disappears because I've not told it to stop, but I'm going to do so. So I'm going to double click on the timeline on the apple to take me into that timeline. I'm going to put a keyframe in at the end of the sequence. So I right click on the last frame in actions, insert keyframe, and then in the actions window I will just type another stop, which means when it reaches that point it will stop, and so it should stay on the stage. I control and enter to test that. Click, on it comes and stops. Okay, the positioning leaves a little bit to be desired, but that is where I'm going to leave this. So we'll just save our file at this point, which is file and then save, or control and S, and I will just call this for example 1, and we should save these all in one folder so that you can use them for future reference. Okay, save, and I'll end it there for this version.